afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today. Ali Corman, Justin Nielsen here with a breakdown of the action in today's session, where we did see technology up today, but it wasn't the leading group, Justin, and we also saw a breakaway gap on earnings for one stock.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and take a look at PVH today. Also, we're not going to leave tech out of the story. We will take a look at Cloudflare, and then also, why not take a look at real estate, a real estate play, CBRE.
Okay, let's do that. First, a look at how the major indexes finished the day. So as you can see, the NASDAQ up, but off of highs, finishing the day with a gain of 0.3%. The S&P 500 slightly in positive territory. The Dow down about 0.1%, and the Russell 2000 leading today up about 0.6%. So not surprising that maybe we see a little bit of a slowing down of this strong move that we've been seeing from the NASDAQ.
Yeah, so we're not getting to those necessarily extended levels via the moving averages. We're about 4.8% on the Qs above the 50-day moving average line today. But it does look kind of at that extended nature, right? I mean, we had that bounce off the 50-day moving average line, and it just seems like the index hasn't stopped. Of course, a lot of the big name tech companies have been doing well. I mean, we talked about Apple earlier this week. That has been where a lot of the action has been, but there has been a little bit more breadth, a little bit more participation. And the Russell 2000, we can go ahead and take a look at IWM. That really had a strong bounce off of its 200-day moving average line, getting back above the 50-day. So yes, that one did outperform a little bit today, but it was the laggard, and it continues to be the lag, as you can see from that relative strength line. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, meanwhile, I mean, that one, was kind of one that we were looking at a lot earlier in the year, and even in November. That one hasn't managed to get to new highs. A lot of the industrial plays have been a little bit under pressure. The materials were getting hit. Some of the steel stocks, a lot of them bounced back, but they were getting hit. Energy was probably the worst sector of the day. So that was going on. You did have some weak China factory data. The jobs report from ADP today was coming in much lower than expected. It was like 345,000 jobs added as opposed to the estimates of 600,000. You still have those inflation concerns. The PMI, there's all sorts of supply constraints. So there is still this wall of worry that the index has been shaking off, but the biggest issue is, hey, we just need to make sure we're not going up too fast, too quickly. And so pauses are good, like last Thursday's pause, but it hasn't seemed like the NASDAQ has wanted to quit here.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned some of the sectors that were struggling a little bit today. The leading sectors, however, real estate and utilities, should that be a concern at all?
It's not what you like to see leading, but if they lead a day here or there,
Right.
while some of the other stocks take a break, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It was just kind of weird that overall the NASDAQ was still strong, even though I think XLK, the technology sector spider fund, basically closed flat. It looked like it was going to close flat. Yeah, up only 0.03%. So definitely well off the highs of the day. Things started really pulling back in on the NASDAQ. And I mean, the S&P 500, that went negative for a little while, even though it was having a strong day for most of the day. So that closed basically flat.
Okay, and taking a look underneath the surface, PVH in the apparel clothing manufacturing group, a big gap up on earnings today, up 15%, heavy volume behind this move as well. We had top line growth of 46% and a huge number for the bottom line as well.
Yeah, so I mean, granted, the comparison from a year ago, you got to think, a lot of those stores were closed completely. But on the conference call, they did mention that some of their brands, especially the international, was really the driving force here, especially Europe. But they are getting back up to 2019 pre-pandemic levels for their revenue, and so that's promising. Tommy Hilfiger saw a 41% increase in their growth. Calvin Klein 56%, and Heritage Brands 37%. This was chosen as the stock of the day, so definitely I would recommend for people to take a look at Aparna's story on PVH. again, more than anything, it's, this is a breakout above that 116.79. So while and this really was still in that buy range from that level. Now, it can be very scary buying something up 15% in a single day, and you have to be ready for this to potentially pull back. But if it can hold those gains, maybe go sideways for a little bit as people kind of get used to, this new valuation. A lot of firms came out and upgraded or at least changed their price targets today because of how strong those estimates were. So again, just to kind of give you the sense, the estimates, I believe, for the EPS, the non-GAAP EPS, were for 120, and they came in at 272. So I mean, that's a big beat. That's that's a huge blowout. And not only that, but they also raised their guidance for Q3. So you've got all these firms that are trying to revalue their company, this company, put the model, to plug different numbers in that model. So if it can kind of hold tight here, that would be ideal, and then you could potentially have another chance at this.
Yeah, and we always talk about not wanting to buy stocks when they are extended. And once again, these earnings gaps can be that one exception, because our research shows that oftentimes they do work. Checking in on Nike in a related group here, look at that big gap out of the base on its earnings report that day, up 15.5%, and that launched a big move for the stock. So not saying that that's what's going to happen for PVH, but it's definitely what could happen.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a great example. The whole idea here is that sometimes that whole change in the valuation, will last for a while, and will start driving more and more institutions to say, look, I just need more of this stock.
And speaking of Nike here, pulling back to the 50-day line. So who knows? Maybe a bounce off of that level could be a buying opportunity.
That's your bonus content for the day.
Bonus stock analysis. Here we go. Okay, let's take a look at a Cloudflare ticker in ET. Up today, some 5%. Some nice volume behind the move. That relative strength line, very strong. And look at this advance for the stock that has gone up about 32% since breaking out of this consolidation in mid-June, finding support at that 21-day line the whole way.
Yeah, so this was just another example of support at the 21-day moving average line. I think I would hesitate necessarily starting a position here. I do have a position myself. This is one we've had on Swing Trader a number of times, and that's actually made it so that I've been out of my position and had to buy it back a number of times while it was on the restricted list. But this is one where it has had these very nice pullbacks of the 21-day moving average line. And we also will sometimes say, look, initiating positions off of the 50-day moving average line is completely legitimate, but you want to be careful not to do it too frequently. Maybe after the first or second time you can get away with it, but once you're in that third, fourth, fifth bounce, now you're starting to get a lot more extended. And this wasn't a full base. This was just kind of a short little pullback that we had here. So it's a little bit tougher starting positions here. But if this is a stock that you felt like you needed to add to, I don't mind the idea of adding so much, but you do have to be careful of initiating positions after it's already had quite a run up, especially, this has already gone up more than 20-25% from that initial breakout back in May, June. So, what would be ideal here is for this to base out again. But you do have to respect the fact that it was a strong outside day. It was underwater for a little bit during the beginning of the day, but really came back with strength and wiped out all of the pullback that has happened over the last 5 to 7 days.
And yet another name, Justin, in the enterprise software group.
We're
seeing a lot. Seeing a lot of strength in enterprise software, but other software related groups, security software as well. So Cloudflare among the leaders in the group.
And that's a really good point. I mean, that group is number 14 out of 197. And it wasn't that long ago that, just a few months ago, it was, kind of at the bottom of that level. So the fact that it came on, the fact that it came on so strong. And again, this was a group that had a lot of setup. So it kind of gave you a little bit of foreshadowing. It gave you a little bit of a tell of what was in store for it.
And last but not least, CBRE on our list to check in on today. So speaking of real estate, outperforming today. So why not check in on a real estate name, up 1.1% for the day. So nice reaction to earnings that came out at the end of July, pull back to the 50-day and now bouncing back up near highs.
So because we talked about PVH and the earnings gap up and you brought up Nike, I just want to show that this is what can happen, right? It can pull back, it can fill in that gap. And in this case, it got support at a reasonable level. It came all the way back to that 90 level, which was right around the top of that base. So not only did you get that support at the 50-day moving average line, you also got it at the top of a base. So that's a reasonable level, and it bounced from there. So I'm not necessarily saying that this is something you should be going out and buying right now, but I just wanted to kind of show, hey, this is normal action. Be prepared for it. And that's why, maybe buying PVH right now, you could wait for some of that sideways action, see if it maybe crosses the high of today, or does it go flat for a little while, or maybe even test that gap up, fill in the gap a little bit, undercut today's low. So there's a lot of ways this can play out. The biggest thing you need to do is think those scenarios through ahead of time. If the stock does this, this is what I'm going to do. If the stock does this, this is what I'm going to do. And that gives you a battle plan for how to handle it. And what they say, plan your trade and trade your plan. Okay, I should have given it to you. Let you fill in the blank.
Wanted to jinx with you there. One of us was going to say it, so might as well been both of us.
Yeah.
But anyway, for CBRE, I know sometimes we say real estate, schmeal estate, but group 45 out of 197, it's been bubbling to the top. Real estate has.
Absolutely. And we should just point out the sector spider fund, XLRE. That can just kind of give you a sense, hey, this is one that I've mentioned a few times. It's a slower mover. A lot of people think of this as your REITs and your yield and stuff like that, but you can get some pretty good capital appreciation from some of these stocks. And CBRE, that's got a composite rating of 95. So this is no slouch in the growth department. And you do have those stocks that are in this group. So I'm not saying that you have to go and necessarily buy the slowest ones out there, but there were a number of things that are looking strong and are growth plays. Another one, just since we're on it, I'll go ahead and mention Equinix. I think EQIX, that had a breakout today. So, these stocks in this group are out there. This is a REIT, so this one does have some yield, 1.3%. So roughly the same as the S&P 500. But if you go to the weekly chart, this is one that has a tendency to have some moves at times. You can see back in 2020, it had a nice trend there, back in 2019. So this does trend, as opposed to what a lot of people expect from the REITs is flat action, and you're getting all of your money from the yield.
Well, lots of bonus action here today in the discussion, Justin. Thank you so much. And thank you all for tuning in. We will be back, of course, with more tomorrow morning on IBD Live, our daily morning live stream, where we are talking about actionable trade ideas in real time, maybe a couple of stories here and there, but we did somehow tie buying avocados to buying stocks. So, there's
definitely
wisdom
check out
in
that
everything.
content. Exactly.
So go to investors.com/IBD Live. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning for another great show there. And here after the close, we'll see you then.